Hi, this is Sowmyan again. Welcome to my Learn Japanese lesson number 39. Expressing desires is a very important need in communication. That is what we will look into in this lesson. We are drawing closer to the end of phase 1 of my series of lessons on Japanese. We have covered nouns, verbs, particles, and adjectives. In some of the early lessons, we covered sentences ending with desu, arimasu, and imasu. These represented descriptions of physical states. Then we went on to learn a lot about action verbs. These helped us to describe action. We had a fairly large number of lessons dealing with verbs and their conjugated forms. In Japanese, verbs are everything. So much of feelings and emotions are expressed through verbs. So there is a lot more to learn about verbs and their conjugated forms. I will defer them to a future series. We will now begin a set of lessons on other useful words and concepts. We will start with learning to express our desires, opinions, and thoughts. In this particular lesson, I will be covering expressions of desire, needs, and hopes. Expressions using kudasai are one way of communicating a desire. Kudasai means please give me. This presupposes that the person you ask has what you need and is in a position to give it to you, or is capable of doing an act that you want done. The beneficiary of the request expressed with kudasai is the requester. But there are other contexts where you may want to express a need to others. It is possible that you do not know if the other person is in a position to provide what you need, so you cannot say give me. You express your need and wait for the other person's response. It may also be an expectation set on you by your customer or boss. The desire is a mental state of need or expectation. Just as kudasai was used with things as well as actions, expressions of desire can also be with respect to things and actions. Hoshi is an adjective meaning desire and is used with nouns. A modified form of action verb consisting of the masu base appended with tai is used for expressing the desire for an action. There is no special conjugation rules to be learned. Whatever applies to forming the masu form is all that is required. The desire or need or hope is in the speaker's mind. So, expressions about our desire will be in the first person. We really do not know about the mental state or desire of others. We can only inquire about another person's desire through a question posed to the second person. As far as third person is concerned, we can only express our supposition of what their desire might be or quote their desire as expressed by them. So, the sentences where these desires are expressed have to be of the appropriate structure. Let us look at the use of hoshi. Hoshi is an adjective. It ends with double I, and as you may remember, this is indicative of a Japanese adjective. Look at the first sentence. Watashi wa shatsu ga hoshi desu. Shatsu means shirt. It is the transliteration. The sentence means I am desirous of a shirt. When you need a thing, you say watashi wa thing ga hoshi desu. I could have dropped watashi wa here as only I can express a desire of mine in such explicit terms. Substitute the corresponding word representing the thing that you want in place of shirtsu and you will have the sentence. Look at another sentence. Watashi wa zumen ga hoshi desu. We have zumen instead of shirtsu. Zumen means a technical drawing, such as the blueprint. The sentence means I need a technical drawing. The particle used here is ga. The word following it is an adjective and the sentence is communicating an information. There is no action verb in the sentence and hence no particle o. This is the verb here. This is often referred to as a copula. Use of this is almost as if we say my desire is equal to shirt or subject is equal to predicate. Before we go on to discuss the expression of a desire for action, I would like to review some of the well-known verbs we saw early on. Though we introduced the plain form for many of the other verbs, we need to revisit our knowledge on the plain form of arimas and des. Plain form of arimas is aru. Aru is a group 1 verb. The polite masu form is arimas. The negative of arimas is arimasen. In the previous lesson, I introduced to you the negative plain form or the nai form of verbs in general. The conjugation logic would suggest that the imas in the group 1 verb of masu form is to be substituted with anai to give the negative plain form. However, the plain negative of aru is just nai and not aranai. The past tense of arimasen is arimasen deshta. The past tense of nai is nakatta. Now let us look at des. The plain form of des is da. The polite negative of des is deva arimasen. The plain form of this is janai. As noted in the previous slide, we can consider nai to come from arimasen, while deva becomes ja. The past tense of des is deshta. The plain form is datta. The negative of deshta is deva arimasen deshta. The negative of datta is ja nakatta. Let us now take a look at a Japanese adjective and find how they are used in sentences with negative and past tense indications. Japanese adjectives are not exactly like the English adjective. They conjugate like verbs, and these are also called as the adverbial forms of adjectives. Let us look at 4 simple sentences: present, present negative, past and past negative. After each polite form, I will also show the plain form usage. The idea here is to refresh how the Japanese adjectives were modified. Hoshi is a Japanese adjective, and the Thai forms are also treated similarly. Kono jamu wa oishii desu. This is the basic sentence of the polite present tense form. This jam is tasty is the meaning. Kono jamu wa oishii de wa arimasen. This is a polite negative present tense. Kono jamu wa oishikunai desu is a plain negative present tense. Oishiku is a adverbial form. The last I is replaced by ku and nai is appended to it to connote the negative. So, oishikunai is the negative of this. It is not tasty is the meaning. In case of Japanese adjectives, the negative form is based on the adverbial form. Let us look at the remaining 2 forms, past and past negative. Kono jamu wa oishii deshita is a polite past tense. Kono jamu wa oishikatta desu is a plain past tense. Oishii became oishikatta in the past tense. Was tasty is the meaning of oishikatta. Kono jamu wa oishii de wa arimasen deshita is a polite negative past tense form. Kono jamu wa oishiku nakatta is the plain negative past tense. Kunai became kunakatta. Oishiku nakatta means was not tasty. Let us recapture the way Japanese adjectives conjugate. Japanese adjectives end with ai, ii, oi or ui. Note that ei is not an ending for Japanese adjective. These are for foreign adjectives. To get negative present tense, we substitute kunai in place of the last I. To get past tense, substitute katta in place of the last I. To get negative past tense, substitute kunakatta in place of the last I. In an earlier slide, we saw hoshi only in the positive present tense. Having seen that hoshi is a Japanese adjective and also recollected how Japanese adjectives are changed for past and negative forms, we will now see how hoshi changes into the past and negative forms. Negative of hoshi is hoshikunai, meaning not desirous or not need. Past tense of hoshi is hoshikatta, meaning was desirous or needed. Past tense of hoshi is past negative of hoshi is hoshikunakatta, meaning was not desirous or did not need. Now let us look at some examples. Watashi wa camera ga hoshi desu, meaning I need a camera. Watashi wa kuruma ga hoshikunai desu, means I am not in need of a car. Watashi wa pen ga hoshikatta desu, means I needed a pen. Watashi wa hon ga hoshikunakatta desu, means I did not need a book. Let us look at some more examples. The general form of the sentence is A wa B ga hoshi desu, where A is the person with the wish and B is the thing A wishes for. Watashi wa kohi ga hoshi desu. This is a straightforward example. It means I want some coffee. It is my desire that I am expressing. I know my desire. John-san, nani ga hoshi desu ka? Is a question addressed to another person, inquiring about that person's desire. This sentence means, John, what do you want? When we talk about a second person's desire, most often it is a query about their desire. The response to this could be, nani mo hoshikunai desu, meaning I do not want anything. Again, this response is uttered by John-san, and he is talking about his own lack of desire. Consider the next sentence. Kishi-san wa biru ga hoshi desho. This is about Kishi-san, who is the third person. Kishi-san wa biru ga hoshi desu would not be right. Only Kishi-san would know that. We can only expect, hope or anticipate that Kishi-san may want beer. That is what this sentence says. Desho is the ending used to convey expectation. The meaning of this sentence is, I expect Mr. Kishi wants beer. We have considered expressing desire for nouns using hoshi. Let us now consider the tai form application to express desire for action. I want to buy shoes. The Japanese word for shoes is kutsu. The verb required is to buy. The masu form to buy is kaimasu. The masu base is kai. So the expression of desire to buy would be kaitai. This sentence, watashi wa kutsu wo kaitai desu, uses kaitai. Kaitai is an adverbial form. This has the object kutsu. So wo follows kutsu. Let us now look at the variants. First, the present negative. I do not want to buy shoes. The only word to be changed here is the adverb. As we learned from the way adjective changes, we use kaita kunai instead of kaitai. The sentence would be watashi wa kutsu wo kaita kunai desu. Look at the past tense now. Let us see how to say I wanted to buy shoes. Again, we change just the adverb. We will use kaitakatta instead of kaitai. The sentence will now be watashi wa kutsu wo kaitakatta desu. Finally, let us move on to considering the past negative form. That is expressing that I did not want to buy shoes. Again, we change just the adverb. Kaitakunakatta desu. Kaitakunakatta in place of kaitai. The sentence will be watashi wa kutsu wo kaitakunakatta desu. Hope you noticed how the tai form behaved exactly like a Japanese adjective for the conjugation. Let us look at some more variants. There are two structural forms we could have. One is the form A wa B wo shitai desu. An example is watashi wa nihon de camera wo kaitai desu. This is the type we saw in the previous slide. The meaning of this sentence, as all of you would have realized, is I want to buy a camera in Japan. The other structural form is eva biga shitai desu. This form is similar to the examples we saw while discussing hoshi. Let us consider the next example. Watashi wa hayaku kairitai desu. There is no particle wo here. We used a transitive verb. It has no object. It means I want to return back or get back early. This is in the first person. Consider the next example. Kishi-san ni aitakunai desu ka? The form of the adverb used here is aitakunai. I must can change to aitai, aitakunai, aitakatta, and aitakunakatta. We have aitakunai here, so it is present negative. Aitakunai means not want to meet. This is a question, so it is addressed to the second person. Don't you want to meet Mr. Kishi? Is the meaning. As we saw earlier, we are only inquiring about the desire of the second person. Meeting or au is the transitive verb, so there is now particle wo. Look at the last example. Ramu-san wa Tokyo e ikitakatta desho. Here we are talking about Ram-san, a third person, so we cannot state his need or desire directly. We find desho at the end of the sentence. That means the rest of the sentence is about our expectation and there is no certainty about it. That is the right way to express desires of a third party. The verb is ikitakatta. Ikimasu is to go. Ikitakatta is a past tense form. So wanted to go is the meaning. Again, this is a transitive verb. So no particle wo appears. I expect Mr. Ram wanted to go to Tokyo is the meaning of this sentence. Let us now sum up what we learnt in this lesson. We saw two forms of expressing desire. To express the desire for things, we used the adjective hoshi. To express the desire for certain action, an adverbial form is used. This is found by the joining of the masu base of the verb with tai. Since desires were mental states, there were restrictions on how the sentences could be formed. We could express our own desire. We could inquire about a second person's desire or need, but we can only express an expectation about a third person's desire. To understand the past tense and negative sentence expressions related to desire, we went back and reviewed the plain forms of arimasu, desu, and Japanese adjectives. Hoshi is a Japanese adjective and the tai form is an adverbial form. The rules for the formation of the past and negative forms for all these were similar. That brings us to the end of lesson number 39. By and large, I have covered most of the topics I learnt in my own early days. I would now be scanning the portions covered to see what is missing and cover them in the next few lessons. The phase 2 of this series may take some more time. It may take something like 6 months and will be based on feedback. The feedbacks on YouTube have been very few. So in the absence of feedback, most of the time I may have gone forward with some inadequacies. Before I could get substantial feedback, the course recordings seem to have approached an end. I hope you would have enjoyed this series. The only reward for a person like me in such an effort is your attention time, feedback and encouragement. If you like this series, I would urge you to introduce it to others and post your suggestions. If you stumbled upon this video, I would suggest you watch the entire series in my channel Avid Reader 100. The sequence of the lessons was structured to build on things covered in previous lessons. It is likely that if you came to this lesson as the first one, you would not have been able to understand much unless you knew the language already and only wanted a refresher. So I would urge anyone who found this a bit difficult to follow to consider watching the entire series from lesson number 1. Gambattane Deva Mata.